our game of The House in Fata Morgana running on Nintendo Switch. It's getting foggy. Looks like it might rain. Maybe we should take a little break. Want to keep going? Oh, alright then. This deep in the forest? Thank you very much. You must be tired after such a long journey. This is the mansion I'm looking for, yes? He could have said something. Oh well. I should get going, I guess. Does no one live here? But if that's the case, then why was I... Such a big door. Please open. It's not locked, I guess. I wonder if the window's open. Darn, no hint of light. Hello? Is anyone there? Please don't tell me it's actually abandoned. I suppose I can't know without looking around a bit more. What do we have here? Drapes? I see a little light beyond. Oh, it's so pretty. It looks like an angel? Why would someone cover this up? It's beautiful. With a little more light, it'd be... Please do not touch the drapes. Or the windows. I'm sorry for coming uninvited. But, I did announce myself. Is this, your mansion? It is. Thank goodness. I was afraid it was deserted. I suspect you would have preferred it if the house were abandoned. Oh, no, not at all. I would be scared to death staying in this dark mansion all by myself. I'm sorry. No ill will intended. But I do think you could do with some light. That way you could see where you were walking. I'm sure this room would look splendid illuminated. Not necessary. I make do perfectly well as things are. How can you see when it's so dark? I have an abundance of candles and oil for lamps. I am not in want of means of creating light. It is not your place to criticize my lifestyle. If you need light, you are free to leave. If you are in need of money, help yourself to some of the furniture. There is a village not far from here. Trade for food, then make your way to the larger town. I am no longer able to freely return to the city. I cannot go back there. Please, don't chase me out. I see. And do you ask this of me, aware of how people refer to this mansion? They say that a witch lives here. Not merely a witch. A cursed witch. If you remain here, you too shall likely suffer your own destruction. You're worried for my well-being? Witch or not, my mind is made up. Which will strike you first, I wonder? Regret or the curse? You seem to be doing just fine. It's only a tale. The witch is real, very much so. It is not a legend nor a fairy tale. The witch's name was Morgana. Is me. What was that? Giselle? Oh my! What is the matter, master? Why are you just standing in place? There is nothing there. The maid did not seem to have seen anything. You made to ask her about the scene you had just witnessed. Hmm? Master? You look like you've just seen a ghost. What is the matter? How about a little rest before we move on? You do not wish to remain here? Still not fond of mirrors? Yes, yes. Now let us be off. I too dearly wish for you to return to your old self as soon as possible, Master. If your desire is to push onward, then I could hardly be happier. Now, follow me. You follow the maid's lead, returning to the living room. From there, you climbed a set of stairs, your hands sliding through the dust that settled on the ebony railing. When you stepped out of sight of the mirror, the maid returned to normal. You had been on the verge of remembering something, but you were no longer in a position to be concerned about such things, for the chill in the air within the mansion seemed to have intensified. Standing at one end of the long corridor, you asked the maid, "When was the mansion built?" "I would imagine you know more about that than me, Master." "Yes, I know. You have not yet regained your memories. I was simply teasing you. I have been a servant of this house for many, many years, but the truth is, I do not know everything about it. All I know is that the mansion is cursed, and that it has brought misfortune upon its residents, since times of old. I can make a conjecture as to when it began, but I believe you should figure it out for yourself, Master. There is no guarantee my perspective is the correct one. Now, let us proceed." You and the maid traveled down the dimly lit corridor. While the layout of the house was the same as in the eras of the flaxen-haired boy and the beast, the bleak, colorless gloom felt incredibly dreary. On the wall partway down the hall hung a painting. The painting, which depicted a beautiful landscape, was oddly entrancing, but you did not have time to appreciate the artwork. Your hand in the maid's, you passed by the painting. Before long, a door came into sight at the end of the hall. "This door is what I would like to show you next, Master. Listen closely. Do you hear the voices? Lively but rough, energetic but coarse. What lies beyond this door is neither a period of elegance and abundance like the first, nor one of ruin and savagery like the second. Technology and culture had become quite developed. Cameras and photography had been invented. It was a time of great progress and many breakthroughs, and for that reason those who lived in it were constantly seeking to try new things. The tale I'm about to tell you is one of a man who wagered everything on his ambitions. Hope that what you see, Master, will stir something in your heart. Now, through the door we go. Please do not let go of my hand." The maid pushes the door open. Colorful balls bounce around atop a long, dark green table. One man, dressed in black and standing by the billiards table, turned towards the door. The room was inundated with eye-watering cigar smoke, causing you to squeeze your eyes shut. The third door. 1869. That era was a rat race of innovation and development. The smoke was so thick you could hardly see more than a few feet ahead of you. I could compare it to a dense morning fog, but that might give the impression of beauty, and that there was little to be found in this haze. Do you see the silhouettes of several men in the smoky room? The one in the middle, the one looking in your direction, Master, was the present master of this house. His name was Jacopo. Jacopo. I think Jacopo sounds right. And though he dressed in such fine attire, I sincerely doubt he understood how splendid the furnishings left in the mansion truly were. I am a faithful servant of this house, and I would not, for the life of me, dare speak ill of my master. However, this is a time long past. I imagine God would be so kind as to turn a blind eye to a little bit of honesty. I was not terribly fond of my master back then. He had wavy hair the color of over-dried tea leaves, a piercing gaze, an arrogant smile, and he wore a hat that made him look rather haughty. He put his trust only in money, renown, and rank. He left only the iron and steel that had revolutionized so many industries. He had not the slightest bit of love or care for other people. At the very least, that is what I believed at the time. Take a look around the room, Master. Jacopo had remodeled it into a recreation area. The billiards table sat in the center of the room, and the downward-facing lights hanging from the ceiling were special made. The light shone upon the dark green stand like a stage, cigars and bourbon-lined glass cases installed in place of bookshelves. The cases were always fully stocked, their contents available to partake of readily. At that particular moment, as he had many times before, Jacopo had invited several friends and acquaintances, and they were entertaining themselves. His wealthy, high-ranking acquaintances had a variety of hair colors, from polished brass to the brown of a baby robin to the color of sunburnt wheat. There was also much greater variation in skin tone compared to the visitors and residents of previous eras. But that was hardly any surprise, for the mansion sat upon land inhabited largely by immigrants, the New World. What's the matter? What are you looking at? Nothing. I just thought I heard someone say my name. Ain't no one there unless you seen a ghost. I don't believe in such nonsense. It's an old house with a long history. Wouldn't be surprised if it had a ghost or two. But if the place is going to be haunted, I'd take a princess over a bloody broad any day. A princess, eh? And when she showed up, you'd have your way with this ghost lady, am I right? Color me impressed, son. You jumper bones, and she don't even got any to jump. Ah, come on now, that's hardly fair. Not much you can even do with a ghost. My God, are you men or children? This is my house, and I would rather you didn't talk about it like that. Just the blatherings of a couple of drunks. Pretend you didn't hear nothing. For the love of God. In any event, whatever happened to that printer you invested in? I haven't heard their name come up in some time. Can we please avoid that topic? It's been quite the headache for me. I thought I'd pay it off, or I thought it'd pay off, but it all just sounded sketchy to me. I recommended you pull out unless you want to find yourself with nothing left but a nice fat pile of debt. You could have mentioned that beforehand. Ugh, this is killing me. The men's deep voices resonated in the cloudy room. As they imbibed alcohol and puffed on their cigars, they conversed mostly about business and money. Jacopo and the rest of the men were a breed known as investors. You might also call them tacticians. They survived on information attained before anyone else, making swift decisions and having foresight. Though instead of flesh and bone, their soldiers were made of ink and paper. To an outsider, this meeting might appear to be a congregation of friends, but in reality they were observing one another, gathering information and anything else they could use to get ahead. At times, money and information were exchanged directly, and when they were no longer of financial value to one another, their relationship would pop like a bubble and dissipate into nothing. But you know, Jacopo, you can't be sure this railroad you're so passionate about is going to bear fruit neither. You don't even know if it'll get finished. And even if they do connect the tracks, will it really be in any shape for people to ride in? It's a pipe dream, this transcontinental railroad of yours. Jacopo went silent, but I'm certain this is what was going through his head. You're a bunch of damned imbeciles if you can't see the entire country put their weight behind this endeavor. This is why you have so much trouble making even a few thousand. At the time, a great railway was being built across the breadth of the continent. Construction was spearheaded by two large rail companies, in competition for both prestige and a bigger share of this massive national enterprise. The Union Pacific Railroad Company started building from the east, and the Central Pacific Railroad Company from the west. But government bonds alone were not enough to finance the massive undertaking. By the way, there have been some less than pleasant reports about workers dying on the job for the company you chose, Central Pacific. Ah, you mean how they were using explosives to blast through the mountains? Making quite a bang there, they are. But if this gets to be much bigger of a fix, they're not going to be able to continue construction. You should have at least put your money in the more sure bet of the two, the Union Pacific. It'll cost you to hire replacement workers. What is in my nose? It'll cost you to hire replacement workers, and if they keep kicking the bucket, you're going to have trouble finding more. My goodness. And I thought you all had spines. You think we're going to run out of workers just because a few ate it? Ha! There's so many we don't even know what to do with them all. There's not a chance that we'll end up dry. And if by some chance it does, all we have to do is buy up a ship full of blacks or yellows. You won't get anywhere if you spend your time worrying about a few measly laborers. This is an endeavor backed by the entire nation. Their deaths are honorable, in service of the country. The biggest loss is not of people's lives, but time. The longer a project takes, the more money it costs, and the less profit we make. What we seek is rapid progress, even if the methods to obtain it are measly, or deadly, or messy, or deadly. The other men in the room chuckled uncomfortably at Jacopo's distasteful choice of words. Do you agree with his way of thinking, Master? Perhaps he does have a point in that great sacrifice is necessary to accomplish great things. And it is true that tragedy often lies in the shadows of the splendor of the times long past. Furthermore, the way people see the world changes with times, so I hesitate to criticize him too severely. Now, as I'm sure you have already picked up on, he was an investor who had put money into a railroad company. He also passed several crude oil refineries, riding on the world's second wave of industrial development. The mansion, too, bustled with life, in a way it never had before. Dozens of maids, including me, gardeners, chefs, sculptors, artists. At times, we even had writers coming in and out of the house. There was rarely a moment of silence. However, I was not terribly fond of the hustle and bustle, personally. But please do not get me wrong. I am hardly opposed to the mansion being cheerful. It was just, how should I put it? The splendor of the time seemed superficial, heartless. It was as though everyone was being rushed along by some unknown invisible force. Part of it was, I expect, caused by the growing divide between those standing at the top and sitting at the bottom. Or perhaps the mansion was simply taking after its master. There's no time to waste. Everything is resting upon the success of this project. Whatever it takes, I will ensure it happens. I need more money, more power. Suddenly, a restrained knock on the door stopped his train of thought. From beyond the door came a woman's voice, gentle and as a soft spring breeze. Pardon me, I have made some tea. May I offer anyone a cup? When the door opened, in it stood a beautiful woman with pure white hair. It was indeed her. Are you surprised? Or did you anticipate her appearance? Though she was not the same age and dressed differently, the white-haired girl, whom you saw fall into the hands of misfortune in the era of roses and the era of beasts, was also present in this era of innovation. Furthermore, she was Jacopo's wife. Tea? I don't recall asking for that. When were you asked to make it? I wasn't, but I had these leaves with the most wonderful aroma, and thought you might enjoy... Shut your trap and know your place. What do you think we have all these maids for? Hey now, no need to treat your lady like that. She was just trying to be courteous. These are my personal affairs. Keep your comments to yourself. His friends were unsure how to react, but ultimately nobody stepped up to stop Jacopo. I don't want to call him Jacopo. They merely shrugged, tossing glances at one another. Jacopo stomped over to the white-haired girl. He then grabbed her by the arm and dragged her from the den. What the hell do you think you're doing? I told you time and time again to stay away from that room unless absolutely necessary. I'm sorry, but, I made tea and... Shut up about the tea already. You think we're having tea parties in there like a bunch of prissy nobles? I'm sorry. If you really feel so bad, don't go in there in the first place. Get the hell back to your room. I meant no harm. It's just, I'm your wife. I thought it would be nice if I could do something. Like I've told you, that's not your job. Don't show yourself in front of the other men. I have nothing else to say to you. Got it? Now scram. Sakes alive, first them, now you. Driving me up the wall. What is it? I told you to get out of here. Right, but, What? When will you spend time with me next? It has been some time since we last went out together. But we don't even go out. Just having dinner together would... What was it? Oh, but we don't even have to go out. Just having dinner together would... How many times are you gonna make me repeat myself, you worthless tramp? Are those ears only for show? Go back to your goddamn room. My apologies. Looking utterly downtrodden, the white-haired girl made her departure. Such a piteous sight she was, or a piteous sight she was. As he watched her go, Jacopo merely snorted. Just thinking about the way he behaved then angers me. I have little fondness for men who do not treat their spouses with respect. So, as you could see, the white-haired girl was in hardly a joyous situation. She was devoted to Jacopo and tried to do whatever she could for him. But he not only brushed her aside, he did so in an insulting, deliberately harmful or hurtful manner. They were far from picturesque partners. Do you wonder then, Master, why she married him? The answer to that question will come to light in time. For now, let us follow her. Looking down dejectedly at the undrunken tea, the white-haired girl walked alone down the corridor. Though its calming scent filled the air, there was nobody around to have their heart warmed by it. Nor was there anyone to alleviate her loneliness. Despite being the master's wife, the maids who crossed her path in the halls said nary a word to her. As a matter of fact... Oh dear, I beg your pardon, madam. It's fine. One even bumped into her, stifling a laugh as she trotted off. In all likelihood, she had done it intentionally. The poor white-haired girl, who had fallen to the floor, stared helplessly at the broken cups. The tea she had made for her husband was forming a stain on the carpet. The maid's behavior towards the mistress of the house was absolutely unacceptable. Nevertheless, it was commonplace, all because of the way Jacopo treated her. The more the man of the house acted cruel to her, the less weight her position as his wife held to the servants. Day in and day out, the maids worked busily, offered little opportunity for leisure, so they would naturally have accumulated quite a bit of stress. And she became the target for them to let off their steam. Not directly, but through a more subdued kind of harassment from the shadows. She must have felt quite miserable. I imagine she would have been better off as one of the maids. On the surface, and in front of others, they showed respect for her as Jacopo's bride, but behind closed doors they acted very much the opposite. The disparity between the treatment she received around others, the treatment she was supposed to receive at all times, and the way she was actually treated made the abuse that much worse. And furthermore, as you have seen through the other doors, Master, she was a very reserved young woman. She could neither raise her voice in reprimand nor raise her hand in retaliation. I have to get this cleaned up. She extended her spindly fingers towards the shards of shattered porcelain. But even the broken cup seemed to have no concern to spare for her. Its shattered edge cut her fingertip when she made to pick it up. A trickle of warm red blood ran across her unearthly white skin. As painful as it was, it had a sort of taboo beauty about to it. The blood spilling from her fingers showed no sign of slowing down. She clenched her hand into a fist and let out a sigh, then went back to collecting the shards of porcelain. But when she did... Madame! Madame! What's the matter? Madame, you're bleeding! While all the other maids ignored her, one came running over, shouting, to the white-haired girl's side. We need to get that cleaned and bandaged up. You don't need to pick that up. That's not your job, madame. It's all right, Maria. There's not much to pick up. It is not at all right. And the rest of you, why are you just standing there? Your boss's wife is on her hands and knees, and you're not even lifting a finger to help her. You disgust me. Maria, it's fine, really. Oh, madame. If you weren't so timid, this wouldn't happen. You're allowed to yell at them, you know. It's all right, really. It's my fault. Anyway, we should get that finger taken care of. Let's get you back to your room, okay? but the broken cups and the spill. As I said, that's the maid's work. Come on, let's go. Okay. And the rest of you, get this mess cleaned up. She roared like the wind in a thunderstorm. The other maid stood there dumbfounded, watching as she and the white-haired girl disappeared down the hall. But they were soon frowning and grumbling to one another. She thinks she can act all high and mighty just because the master is fond of her. The woman's name was Maria. She was one of the maids. And she was the one person in the mansion the white-haired girl could think of as an ally. Though her husband paid her no mind and the maids made her life miserable, just one person, Maria, treated her with respect and kindness. And I'm sure you can readily imagine just how much of a lifesaver that was for her. I too found myself somewhat relieved that Maria was there for her. Being a servant of this house, I was also one of the maids working there at the time. However, I was unable to involve myself to any great degree in her fate. This meant that there was little I could do to assist her, even in times of pain and unpleasantness. The best I could do was pray that Maria would continue to lend the white-haired girl her hand. And that does it. Thank you, Maria. You're always such a big help. Oh, no need to thank me. I just did what any good mate should do. No one else is in the room, you know. Oh, right. Then I can drop the act. Man, I just can't get used to talking all stuffy. I'm out here doing my best, but the head maid's still spouting stuff like, "Your manner of speaking is improper for a servant." Every single time we meet. Yeesh, come on, just shove it, would you? You damn creep. Now, you mustn't speak of her like that. Sorry, slipped the old tongue. She just kind of gives me the willies, you know. Speaking of, you drop the stuff you talk to, madame. Kind of awkward if only one of us is acting casual, you know. This is normal for me. If I intended to talk like you, I would freeze up out of nervousness. This is my casual. Fair enough. Guess that's what happens when you're raised well. I like it, though. Has a very regal feel about it. I don't think my upbringing is the only factor. But, you know, upbringing is important. Worth a whole lot more than money, I'd say. I suppose. Thank you, Maria. You're always so compassionate. You betcha. They don't call me the Virgin Mary for nothing. I practically bleed compassion. You know, that might be true. You very well could be the reincarnation of the Mother of God. No. You were supposed to laugh at that. It's just embarrassing if you take it seriously. Alone in the white-haired girl's room, Maria was acting much more friendly and relaxed as they conversed, as opposed to her no-nonsense attitude in the hallway. The two women were, as you could see, quite close. They had crossed over the wall, separating master from servant, and built a bond of friendship. At some point, they had begun to speak frankly with one another when no one else was around. Maria was the only person in the mansion with whom the white-haired girl felt comfortable being open. I imagine she very much enjoyed the moments of conversation. You wish to know who the head maid was? My. Are you sure you want to ask me that, master? Some questions are better left unasked, for your own good. I'll have to say, madame, you have the prettiest fingers. Mine are all rough and dry and nasty. You think so? Mine haven't had the slightest bit of muscle. They're about as frail as dead branches. Oh, who needs beefy mitts anyway? I still think healthy-looking hands like yours are far more attractive. What? What's it like about these things? Women all over the world dream of having hands like yours. Slender, feminine, and perfectly cared for. I don't know, just looking at them lights the fire in my loins. Makes me want to lick every last one of them. Actually, say, can I lick them? Can I run my tongue up and down all 10 of those sweet little digits? Come on, can I? What do you say? Stop that, Maria. Seriously. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh, Maria. Oh, right. How those tea leaves turn out, madame? The ones you imported. All the maids just adored it. They can't get enough of that aroma. I'd sure like to get a taste of it. If you end up with extra, you think you could spare a sip for me? That was, what was in the cups I dropped? Wow, really? Well, ain't that a crying shame? Jacopo wouldn't have any of it. God, why does that man have such a stick up his ass? You went through all the trouble of making it for him, and he was busy. It's not his fault. Busy? You mean playing billiards, drinking bourbon, and puffing a damn cigar? It may look to us like they're just making small talk, but I'm certain the meeting has some importance to their business. It was imprudent of me to try to step into the men's world. That's just not right. I mean, you're his wife. You shouldn't be... why shouldn't you be allowed into the room? It doesn't bother me. You don't have to pretend. Here's an idea. How would you like to have some of that tea now? We also have some orange marmalade, which you like so much. Add a scoop of that, and a tray of cookies, and we have the perfect tea time. You're singing the siren song, madame. But you really should be doing that with him. He would not have tea. I suspect he does not like it. I don't want it to go to waste, so... Madame, I know it's none of my business, and I have no place at all saying this, but it's not impossible for a woman to file a divorce these days. You don't have to sit down and take it, not one bit. You're pretty, well-educated, and still young. There's hope, even if you do leave him. There are plenty of other men out there. You aren't obliged to stick with that arrogant jerk. He's just very busy right now. There you go again. There was a time when he was kind. Eh? He wasn't like this when we first met. Back then, he was a little awkward, but a kind man. Him? A kind man? Yes, believe it or not. There was indeed a time. Say, Maria, would you mind giving me a little bit more of your time? I'll make some tea and we can talk. Alright. If you tell me about when Jacopo was decent, I'm all ears. Indeed. As I'm sure you're aware, our parents arranged our marriage. Before I emigrated to this country to be married, I lived in a misty island nation. Portraits of my ancestors hung in the house where I lived. I remembered as a child wincing in fear at the sight of them staring down at me. My mother and father were constantly telling me to show them respect, as it was their hard work that kept our bloodline alive and well. However, they were fighting an uphill battle to do the same. It would have been clear to anyone reasonably perceptive that our house was coming tumbling down. Valuable furniture and paintings slowly disappeared, and eventually the portraits were gone too. As our house collapsed, so did my parents' health deteriorate, robbing us of any source of income. And though I was educated, I lacked the skills necessary to obtain work. Just as we were about to run out of money and options, my parents received Jacopo's parents' marriage proposition. Both of our families stood to benefit from the arrangement. I had social status, and he had wealth. We each had what the other lacked. One needs more than money to make it in the world. Without at least a semi-reputable name attached to you, you're liable to get laughed out of most social gatherings. I first met Jacopo here in this country. We didn't even know what the other looked like until our wedding day. To be quite honest, I was scared to death at first. I was so nervous. What kind of man would he be? Was I to be wed to some middle-aged stranger? We were not marrying because we had fallen in love like a normal couple. I knew I was in no position to be concerned with such things, but when I thought about our future, I shook with fear. But the man I saw through my veil at the wedding was remarkable. He was young, had strong, masculine eyes, and at the same time, he too appeared nervous. He was shaking so much. No, even more than me. Seeing that, the priest gave an impish little smirk when he asked Jacopo if he vowed his eternal love to me. I counted myself among the happy. And I still do. For in that moment, I experienced true love. You wanted to hear about when he was kind to me? Well, after the wedding, we were given a week to ourselves. I suppose you could call it a honeymoon, though we didn't take a trip overseas, or even go very far at all. He looked at me with uncertainty and asked, Where would you like to go? I beg your pardon? That's what this week is for, right? I'll consider granting your request, so tell me where you want to go. This is all so sudden. Huh? Nothing? Well, this whole engagement was spur of the moment. Normally we would have had planned a trip in advance. But unfortunately our purpose is served so long as we act the part. You must be disappointed that you have to plan your honeymoon as it's happening. No, what? Speak clearly. I don't like it when people don't speak their mind. I'm sorry, but I'm happy. Even if this is a political marriage. Well, you're quite the positive thinker. Your parents say something to make you think that way? Well, either way, if you're so glad to be in this arrangement, then hurry up and decide on a destination. There's a limit to how far we can go. If you want to take a trip, I'll consider it. What? Something funny? It just seemed comical to me that our honeymoon had begun and we're only now deciding where we want to go. Not in a bad way, though. I'm glad our parents didn't arrange everything for us. Perhaps you've heard, but I'm quite sensitive to sunlight and not in the best of health. So it would be rather trying for me to spend a full week out of the house. We couldn't go on a trip, but if it's not too much trouble. Speak up. Could you show me around the town? I'm new to this country and unfamiliar with its customs, and I'm rather afraid to go wandering about on my own. Show you around? Yes. Would that be possible? Huh. On a rare bit of time off, you asked me to show you around town? Is that really the most exciting idea you have? I'm sorry. If there is somewhere you would like to go, I'm fine with that. I will accompany you anywhere. As if I could drag someone who just professed to being sickly all over the country. My God, I've lost all interest in the trip. Hello, what are you doing? Get ready, now. I beg your pardon? Didn't you want to go see the town? You will show me around? You're the one who asked. Not like I have any other options, so yeah, I'll show you around. Thank you. Don't just stand there, you dullard. Get a move on. Oh, one moment. Wait for me, please. He hurriedly climbed into the carriage he had called for, a look of frustrated displeasure on his face. And then, as if he had forgotten about me until that moment, he returned, grabbed me by the arm, and led me to the carriage. In retrospect, I realized he was not being very gentlemanly, but I was pleased that he was making any attempt to interact with me at all. As the carriage trotted down the streets, I saw so many new things. I had spent most of my time cooped up inside at home, so it was like stepping into an entirely new world. And add to that the rapid industrial advancement currently taking place, I saw men shouting back and forth as they smacked newspaper articles with the backs of their hands. I saw corner cafes crowded with cigar-smoking men on a break from work. It was like the hustle and bustle of a festival, but every festival has its underside. I also saw overworked men looking like they were on the verge of collapse, drinking water from a spigot on the side of the road. By way of contrast, I wore fine clothing and had a carriage at my disposal. I imagine every day was a struggle for them just to remain afloat. Had I not married the man I had, I too might have found myself on the streets in a similar situation. But it was not relief that spread through my breast at the sight of them. It was pangs of guilt. It felt to me like the life of opulence was wrong, sinful. It broke my heart to know that I was living so much better than them. Jacopo snorted disapprovingly at me, seemingly reading my mind, and then said, "The poor man who envies the rich covets his wealth and finds the ambition to make the same for himself, and the rich man who pities the poor, thinking his duty to give them offerings of philanthropy. To me the latter is far more nefarious. Excessive charity will ruin a man, make him come to expect handouts. And then there are those with the wrong idea of pity, who let themselves fall down to the same place, mistakenly believing it will somehow make the poor feel better. What a joke. If you're going to do anything for them, you might as well encourage them to climb upward. Spur on economic growth and the flow of capital. Doesn't that sound like the better option?" I say nothing, simply smiling and giving an ambiguous nod. He had a point. My sympathy and guilt meant nothing to people actually experiencing hardship. If, feeling guilty of my own misfortune, I acted upon that pity in the way he had described, it would accomplish little more than self-satisfaction. He seemed to have seen straight through to my very core. This was a man who had built his own fortune through investment, which I imagine required him to be rather astute. But doesn't a world where everyone is constantly trying to climb higher and higher sound rather exhausting? I personally would prefer to be in a position where I could watch, if only from a distance, as others climbed. But obviously I could not say as much to him. Some time later, the carriage came to a stop in front of a shop. As I looked at the building perplexedly, he gestured to the door with his chin, signaling for me to get out. Lost and confused, I stepped down from the carriage, and before me spread a showcase before a large glass window. However, lined up in the case was not precious metals or expensive clothing, but machines. At first I had no idea what kind of devices they were. Have you ever had your photo taken before? No, I had a portrait painted, though. Are these machines for taking photographs? A portrait, eh? Why am I not surprised? I did not mean to boast. Go on, get in. Well, please, wait for me. The owner came out to greet us with a wide smile as we entered the shop. Well, if this isn't the strangest thing I've seen all day. You bring in a lady, and a real looker at that. What on earth you catch this pretty little thing? She's my wife. Huh? Well, I beg your pardon. I'll be a monkey's uncle. Just goes to show you never know where the cards may fall. You make it sound like my getting married is some kind of miracle. I all saw you as one to choose money over love, sir. Pardon me, this isn't appropriate to say in front of your wife. Do you often come to the shop? On occasion. I need some things here from time to time. I see. There you go smirking again. What's so funny? We're going to have our photo taken, yes? I'm so nervous and excited. I've never had one before. And to have it taken side by side with you. What are you talking about? Pardon? Who said we were getting our pictures taken? And side by side? Please. It's sending shivers down my spine. But this is a photography shop. Hey, shopkeep. The product I contacted you about. Is it ready? Oh, yep. Sit tight. We'll be right out. You take a seat. There's a chair over there. What? I'm going to show you something more exciting than sitting still and waiting in front of a camera lens. Oh? Just do as I say. Okay. I sat down in front of a large mirror, which I presume was normally used to check your appearance before having your picture taken. Sitting before a mirror with someone else present was quite nerve-wracking. Out of embarrassment, I dropped my gaze to my knees. But when Jacopo returned, I was entranced by the curious object in his hands. What is this? Do you know what persistence of vision is? The human eye does not perceive the world 100% accurately. This is especially true for objects in motion. It remembers images for a short time, so if you put a new image in the same place, your eye perceives it as motion. Seeing for yourself would be faster than explaining it. You see the slits in this disc? Look through the bottom of one and into the mirror. Okay. Good, just like that. Bring your head close in. Here goes. Standing behind me, he slid his finger across the top of the peculiar toy, causing it to spin gracefully. And then... So, what do you see? They're dancing. A man and a woman are dancing. Sounds like you're not having any trouble seeing it. Are they dancing well? Yes, they are. It's the most adorable thing. What? Adorable? That's funny. I have to have it modeled after a ballroom dance. Yes, it's a very elegant dance. But you see, they're small, like little dwarves, which I thought was kind of cute. They seem so close, going around and round without ever letting go of each other's hands. This is incredible. Why does it look like they're dancing? They were all lined up in a row a few moments ago. Goodness, I just explained that to you. It's playing a trick on your eyes. What you're seeing is lots of different pictures in a short period of time. To put it into words you might understand better, it's an illusion. Your eyes are being fooled into thinking the image is moving. An illusion? But they're dancing. They really are. And they look like they're having a wonderful time. Are you sure it's an illusion and not something else? To me, it does not seem to be. I cannot see it as anything but two tiny people dancing. That's how it works. Reach out your hand and try to grab them. You won't be able to. You're right. That's a shame. I didn't think you actually would. But it's the most precious thing. They look as though they're dancing on top of my palm. I was mesmerized by the strange phenomenon. Pictures were moving after all. Still images had begun dancing before me. It was almost as if God had breathed life into them. He had called it an illusion, but I could not grasp that. It was such an adorable, heartwarming sight. I imagined the two were living off in some other world, separate from our own. They looked so happy. I was almost certain that they were off dancing in their joyous world, free from all the sorrow and loneliness and pain of this one. Eventually the speed at which they danced began to slow, as if they were resting their legs. I almost thought I could hear the sound of their feet with each step. They've stopped. They can dance forever. They don't get tired. I see. I'm amazed that such an incredible device exists in this world. It makes me wish I had gone outside sooner. I'm sure someone as distinguished as a house as yours has seen plenty of amazing things with your family. Hardly. I rarely ever left the house. I'm ignorant about the ways of the world. If you had not told me, I would have probably never known about moving pictures, the illusion of moving pictures. Do you like it? Yes, of course. More than a portrait you had painted? More than the portrait you had painted? Yes, I do. The painting was wonderful too, but... you can't seem to make up your mind. Go on, tell me, which you like better, the portrait or this? I like this better. I see. He looks somewhat pleased. Though when it comes down to it, this is a simple trick only a child would fall for. And I suppose that makes me a child. If it means I get to watch something as splendid as two tiny people dancing, I'm happy to fall for the trick. Quit describing it as two tiny people dancing. You're going to lose your head that far up in the clouds. Oh, I'm sorry. I do not know how else to describe it, though. It's a toy called a phonatoscope. Phonatoscope? Oh boy, that is a word I have never read. Phonatoscope. Wow, it's even hard to say. Phonatoscope. Phonatoscope. Wheel. Close enough. It was invented around 30 years ago. I had the shopkeep make one modeled after the original design. So the shop owner drew this. He did. A lot better than you'd expect, isn't he? Yes, indeed. I'm surprised he could draw something so cute. Say that to his face and he'll go red as a beet. Oh, Chaos Head Noah. I think Chaos Head Noah is significantly less gory than the original. I think they're making it for general audiences on Chaos Head Noah. That is not true of Chaos Child. Chaos Child is more gory than Chaos Head Noah. So, yeah, bear that in mind. If you are if you're buying Chaos Head Noah, you know, and you're expecting that same sort of level of gore, then it's not there. But the good thing is that there's additional scenarios outside of the original Chaos Head, so, you know, while what you lose in gore, you do gain in additional story. You know, and plus the additional artwork and music. I don't know if it makes the experience different, but it is different. And, you know, Chaos Head Noah is like the definitive edition, so kind of also bear that in mind. I don't know. Like I said, I was surprised that there wasn't that much gore in that game as well. Because I kind of remember Chaos Head being like a little bit more horror than this one is. Like Chaos Head Noah plays out more like a mystery, whereas I always felt like Chaos Head was sort of like a horror visual novel. So yeah. The second one, yes, that one's a little bit more gory, although it is very. They try to keep it very brief, so it's not like long extended pictures of something gory. Yeah. If you're looking for gore, that's probably not Chaos Head Noah. What I'd give to get a load of that. You should tell him that the next time you see him. He's a sweet man. Despite how he looks, you mean? It's not right to judge people based on their appearance. I'm just kidding. Don't take it too seriously. The shopkeeper here loves new technology. That phonatoscope is one such invention that caught his eye. You can trick the eye into thinking drawings are moving. Using a sequence of photos, you can perhaps make it seem as though real people are moving too. And if it becomes possible to show those images to many people at once, these developments could broaden the options artists have to express themselves. Not drawings, but photographs? Yes, photos. By taking hundreds, or perhaps thousands of photographs, it would be possible to reproduce the world as we see it. This room, people walking down the streets. There's no point in recording boring everyday life, though. If you're going to leave a record of anything behind, it should be the projects and enterprises that move nations. Say, for example, a moving record of the opening ceremony of the railroad. That would be something worth watching. And then in time, it would expand beyond a mere record-keeping technology and find its way into the hands of artists. Is such a thing possible? You must remain still for a long time just to take a single photograph. Right now, it's not. Right now, it isn't. But eventually, it will be. And I'm not simply fantasizing here. Is that so? It sounds very futuristic. Do you... What? Do you want to support people who work on that sort of thing? Is that why you're friends with the owner? It has nothing to do with my wants. I merely think there's money in it. The rich starve for entertainment, and artists create the entertainment. I have no interest in their pretentious self-expression. I just want their money. What? What's so funny? You look like you're enjoying yourself. Honestly, it's just about the money. As you say. Oddly enough, I would say Nintendo does not censor their material. And if you've ever seen like a lot of material from Nintendo, you know that's not the case. The only time that Nintendo steps in for censorship is actually from the publisher themselves. So, I guess maybe you haven't seen some of my other walkthroughs, but like there are some fairly risque adult visual novels on the Switch, or at least those crappy adult puzzles that show like characters with various levels of their clothing missing. So that's really what it's about. Chaos Head Noah was greatly changed when it became more of a general release. So the original that's on the Steam version is actually the same one that's on the Switch version. So they're the same version. But like I said, the original Chaos Head was kind of a project of its time, so it was a lot more risky with its imagery. And then much like when Nekopara first started, Nekopara was and still is very much an adult visual novel. and a series of visual novels. But then they made a general release version, which ended up outselling that the adult visual novel. And now it's kind of become like a family, like sort of a family comedy versus what the intention was, which was to have more adult imagery. So I would say that between all of the shops that make games, all the publishers out there, Nintendo actually has the least amount of censoring, which I know sounds a little strange. But and then Sony kind of comes next, and Microsoft follows. So, or actually, I guess Sony is first. So Sony tends to actually force their developers, or at least tell them that they don't approve of certain kinds of imagery. So if it's on the Sony shop, then it's most likely to have more censorship. Microsoft is kind of next, especially being such a big company. If there's censorship going on, you're going to get it more likely from Sony and Microsoft versus Nintendo, who at this point in time they've been pretty hands off. You just can't have like explicit adult material on the Nintendo eShop, but that's also true of Microsoft and Sony. But they also depend on the publisher just to self-govern themselves and use the ESRB. So they have kind of become like the champions of uncensored products. But again, it's not that there's like flamboyant gore and sex on the eShop. Of course there wouldn't be. Not like Steam where that is, well, sort of. How Steam, like, some things are allowed and some things are definitely not. And then sometimes they have like very, very arbitrary rules of what is adult and what is not adult and what's allowed and what breaks the terms of service. I mean, none of that's going on there. But if it can be sold generally in a shop, then or in a electronic store, then you can sell it on Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't stop you from doing it. The only time that would really be a hard stop is any AO rated games, and even then, I think their stance on AO rated games is that they can exist physically, but not through the eShop. So that's probably why you don't see a lot of stuff on the eShop. And you're not going to sell to most people with an AO rated game. Again, just like the rest of the world. M rated games are okay to sell, and teen rated games are the most common games, and then E rated games, of course, out there for everyone as well. So there are a couple examples. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there are at least one or two games that came out this year that were not censored on the Switch, but Sony definitely censored them. So and Microsoft, they didn't even publish on Microsoft because a lot of these visual novels are developed by Japanese developers, so they have no interest in the Xbox. So bear that in mind. If something appears, if a visual novel appears, like we played a Corpse Factory. We played Corpse Factory, which it's pretty explicit, and it has like imagery that, I mean, it's not like gory imagery, but there's definitely like imagery that I think that would trouble you. If you saw, and certainly the descriptions of things going on in Corpse Factory were pretty disturbing. So we saw that on the Switch, and that was unedited. I think it also appeared on the PS4, and there were some changes on the PS4 that are slightly different than what you would have seen on PC. Again, Sony's the kind of in the lead as far as like the console publishers out there, so they play things a lot more conservatively. Microsoft as well, and for whatever reason, Nintendo has just decided to not be as strict as they used to be. Good and bad, obviously. So if you're like a concerned parent, you may have a harder time figuring stuff out. I don't know how many people there are like that anymore, but there has to be at least some. Otherwise, you're probably seeing more H-rated games or adult-rated games. Recently they did a version of Yume Nirvana Pilot, which had some adult material Again, not super explicit, but had some adult material in a very first release, and that was only available on the Switch and PC. It wasn't even available on the Sony system. And then later on, they reworked Nirvana to I think they call it. I think they just call it Nirvana, and then and not Yume Pilot, or maybe they just called it Yume. I forget. But that release, which cut out the adult frames, that appeared on the PlayStation. But you can still get both versions on the Switch. You can get the one that's a little bit more risky, or the one that's heavily edited. So yeah, super weird. Super weird how the world has worked out. But yeah, that's Nintendo's position, and it's strange because they don't have to take that position since they're doing so well. But I think it's also why they draw so many independent developers on their system, is that they don't censor, and their approval process is really just looking for bugs and not content. So yeah, I don't know. I guess if you really want the more gory, explicit version, then yeah, stick with the original release on Steam or on PC, or if you bought it as one of the collector's DVDs that it was available a long time ago. I don't know if that version is still available. I know Chaos Head Noah is basically their definitive version, and I want to say that like the original Chaos Head ran on like a 32-bit, ran in 32 bits. So I don't even know if it would run on Windows 10. I don't know. I haven't checked it out. Anyway, hope that answers your question. I know it has nothing to do with Fata Morgana, but we're playing both of these games at the same time. Since it's October and we're looking for more scary stuff. And I think I'm also going to do Minako, When Seagulls Cry. Even though that gold version has been in development for whatever 4 or 5 years now. I do want to go through that game at some point in time. Although that's not a gory game. Not very gory imagery, but disturbing. Yeah. Not like Iwahime. Iwahime was pretty messed up. So I'm actually surprised that's not on the Switch. Anyway, yeah, that's it. So we will stop it right here for the House in Fata Morgana. Again, this is the Switch version. Features a lot of extra content from the original release, a lot of additional side stories, and it's really well done. So if you have never played Fata Morgana, House in Fata Morgana, you definitely want to check this out. It's probably one of the highest rated visual novels out there. The short stories in this game are incredibly tragic, but also very, very interesting and translated incredibly well. Definitely check it out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.